있었으면 좋겠다.
어? 아, 그룹이 또 있구나.
어?
그룹이 또 있어.
좀비인 줄 알았어?
응?
좀비인 줄 알았어?
응. 다음 교도소는 언제 들어가지?
아 너무 춥고. 어때 재밌어?
뭐 아직까지는 뭐 그냥 그래. 영어를 못 들으니까 뭐라 하는 건지 대충 알아도 뭐 완전히 이해 못하니까 뭐 뱅뱅뱅 해가지고 죽었다는 거 아니야. 아닌가?
So when you have characters like the Reverend Eastman or Durham or the Lady in Blue, there has been so much research, or in fact anybody who was here at Port Arthur, there's always a lot of research that goes into who they were and why they're still here. The Lady in Blue, they can't be, you can never be 100% sure, but they think that she was the wife of the junior accountant. This is the accountant's house. The junior accountant was newly appointed, and this young girl had come from his wife, had newly arrived from England. He was called back to Hobart Town. She had to remain here in the house on her own. He said, lock the door, and I'll introduce you when I get back to some of the other women around here, the neighbours. She was heavily pregnant. While he was gone, she went into labour, and both her and the baby died. Now, for women between the ages of 16 and 50, the most common cause of death was during or after childbirth. Problem is that the baby would not have been baptised and not given a proper burial. Quite often the babies might have been buried under a rose garden or under a fireplace, something of that description. They think that that is who she is and why she's got her hands down like this and she's pleading and she's crying. She's always weeping. She's looking for her baby and she is tormented because the baby was never given a proper Christian burial. Now she's turned up here over the years and years. She's turned up. They used to rent out period costumes up here, so people would dress up, according to, Victorian England. And so guides didn't worry when they saw a woman down the back in a blue dress, except she turned up night after night for one particular guide. And he was very happy, didn't say much, but no one else saw her. And he was very happy one night when he couldn't see her until they were in the party. And there was a woman standing in the room in front of him, one of his, guests or one of the, just like you, part of the group. And she just suddenly yelled out, "There's a woman standing behind you." He turned around. Of course, no one there. But she saw it and she described her. And I tell you, the other night I had an educational group out, and they were from a college in Melbourne. And so they were older, 16, 17. When we got back to the centre, it was a really busy night. We had lots of tours out. They weren't my group, but they were right behind me. And when we got back to the visitors centre, that boy just clambered over all the school bags everywhere, tripping over himself, came up with his phone, had taken a photo looking straight back down there at the church, so he thought. Right there is this image of a woman in blue. I could see, I've never seen anything quite, it's not as clear as a normal photograph, but it's certainly, you could make that, I could see her blonde ringlets, that's how clear it was. And then you could see these sort of folds of the dress. Absolutely incredible. Let's move up the hill.
앱소를 많이 써요. 한 20번 쓴 것 같아. 됐어? 쇼핑몰인데 여기 몇 시까지 닫는 거니까?
몰라.
나 1시간만 해도 괜찮은데 지금 1시간 남았네. 그만하고 싶은데. 이건 내 스타일이 아니야, 오빠. 왜 멈춰?
아직 하이라이트 아니지, 하이파야.
나가리 오는 거 싫어한다. 어떡하냐.
Get a bit of moonlight tonight after all.
이거 뭐야?
Yes, gorgeous. I didn't think it would be this clear. How are we going there, guys? Okay. So this is the junior medical officer's home. Dr. Brownell, perfect example of somebody who had like 10 or 11 children. You know, there were a lot of children in this area. The children, they'd never go down to the seaside or down to the beach unless, of course, they were going swimming or boating. All their social activities, all their games, education, medical treatments, etc., all went on in their own home. Now, this house was also a hotel after Port Arthur closed down as a convict settlement. So it's been put right back now to reflect its convict era. But the photographs of it post-convict Port Arthur had a whole other story on it. There were all sorts of buildings on the outside, accommodation, staff quarters, and so on. This is an area where children can often hear like that low laughter of children, if you like. It's one particular little girl's, and when I say hear voices and hear chanting or whatever, it's just this sort of like subtle murmuring, you know, you just can't quite make it out. I mean, there have been examples of where people have heard something very clear, but in this area, it's children who often hear children. And here, particularly, it's that chant, like she's skipping or, you know, that just skipping rope, jumping rope or whatever. And there was one woman up here with a little girl, and that little girl took off down the veranda, and her mother said, "Where are you going?" And she said, "Oh, I want to go and play with that little girl down there." And she was running towards her with her arms out, so like she was going to, you know, start to skip rope with her. Of course, there was no little girl there whatsoever. In the 1930s, as I said, it was a hotel. There was an elderly woman sleeping in the room up there with a dormer window, very steep pitch roof. And in the middle of the night, she was woken by this rat-tat-tat on the window. So she, you know, came around. It took her a while to sort of come to out of a deep sleep. And then she looked out. She said, "Oh, there's a little girl out there at the window." So she raced over, opened the window, and no one's there. So, of course, she thought she had been dreaming. She took herself back to bed. Well, within a few minutes, there it was again. She looked out. Again, it's that little girl, this time with a very grimmest expression on her face. She bounced out of bed, went over, opened up the window, gone. No one there. So this time, this woman went down, got the manager out, and said, there's a little girl out there somewhere on that roof. So he got his staff up together. They all looked around the roof and looked for ladders or ways that little girl may have accessed that roof. But, you know, you're talking about a 6 or 7 year old. How do you get up on the roof? And there was just no way up there. They don't know. Like I said, they do a lot of work for these things, but they just don't know who that little girl was or why she had this expression on her face. And talking about children, children have this uncanny ability sometimes to pick up on things. There was a little boy on site. His mother explained to me that the whole time he was here at Port Arthur during the day was like he had this imaginary playmate with him. Just went around with him, and when it was time to go, they said goodbye to each other, and off he went. But he always had this feeling, and the mother explained that's been happening to him his whole life. He's only about 7 or 8, and he wasn't the least bit afraid. It's just something, and they do say that once you start to have those experiences, it can often be repeated over many years. There was another chap who came to us here, and he managed to